Hello guys, thank you very much for joining in. I'm Ganesh Nayak and I help finance professionals and students to clear the exam for CFA and FRM in first attempt. And I'm back with one of my video with one of my student primarily. She has cleared FRM level 1 in this Jan 2021. So I thought we should have a quick discussion on her way of preparation and what happened at the time of the exam, what was the strategy that she used, or how she tackled the question. So that discussion we're going to be having now. And this purpose of this video is primarily to help students who are going to be giving the exam in the future, how to tackle the exam, how to prepare for the exam. Okay. So first of all, thank you, Divya. Thank you very much for joining us and giving your valuable time for the discussion and helping the students to prepare for the future. Before we start, just a small introduction about yourself. When you started the preparation for FRM, what were you doing? And what was your intention of doing the FRM?
Hi guys, myself Divya Sankhla, and I'm basically graduated in Bachelor's of Accounting and Finance, and then I was into JM Financials as a credit risk analyst, wherein I learned about risk management and things practically from practical point of view, and I started realizing that my a lot of my colleagues around were doing FRM and CFA, which enhanced their knowledge in theory, and they also started using the applied things in practice. So I thought it's quite interesting. I started going through books and I realized that I want to pursue FRM. Then this started all from there, and I grew interest for FRM. That is where I picked up this thing, and I took up this thing of taking FRM.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Divya. Now, if when we start if we start with discussion, so before you decided, like you said, you went to the curriculum. Did you found any topic or any book difficult, or did you found any topic which easy before you started the preparation by looking at the topic because of your educational background or something like that? Be brief about that.
Yeah, so when I was doing my bachelor's itself, we had a lot of financial management, and we had like what is risk, what is standard deviation, this, that. So I had a lot of interest from the initial stage itself, from my bachelor degree itself. So when I saw the curriculum, the most difficult part of my thing was quants. Which I found it difficult.
Okay.
Initially, I was like, Basel theorems, probabilities are not easy to digest for a student, commerce student,
Okay.
basically. They are very easy for science students. So I was like, this is not my cup of tea. But it was just because of you, sir, that I went through it really well. Probability, Basel, and everything was not a challenge for me. It is basically first is the lecture, then is your own self studies, and then is the practice, question
Hmm.
practice. Then the question practice are self sufficient. You go through them thoroughly, practice them thoroughly. That's it. That takes you through the concept. Like nothing remains after that.
All right. Perfect. So when you
And the
yeah,
con Yeah,
please go ahead.
and the confident part of it was like the concepts. Book three, basically, book two
Hmm.
was quants, and book three was
Futures
the
options.
most important book. And it was like, okay, if you start with that book, you get a gist of FRM level one. What is it exactly? So it is the book that gives you small summaries of everything,
Hmm.
and then book four was the one which give you a broader concept, like what difficulty level you are going to face. So these
Right.
three books were the major part that I felt difficult. And so it was like book three giving me the complete view, book two giving me little it was like little phobiatic for me, but
Hmm.
then I went to through it good, like nicely, and then book four was the most difficult ones,
Okay. Okay. So
conceptual
basically,
wise.
when you started the preparation, you thought that there might be some challenges that you might face, but with a consistent preparation, you were able to overcome that. Now,
Yes, yes.
what was the daily schedule that you followed? Was there a daily preparation that you were doing, or you were only preparing on weekend? What was the strategy in terms of time commitment you had for the exam?
So basic, what works for me is consistency. If
Mhm.
what I maintained is during my job hours, I used to allocate 2 hours every day, weekdays, and I used to
Okay.
allocate 5 hours for weekends. But they are not sufficient. But if you maintain that up, probably you will be like not 100% completing the portion or where you are decided for,
Mhm.
but at least 70% you achieve with this consistency and all. So initially I wasn't able to give that much of time due to work and everything, but then
Right.
I forced myself that every week I will sit at least 2 hours. So for example, there is a break that I'm taking during my office hours. I
Mhm.
used to go and flip my book pages and stay in touch with it during the day as well. So
Right.
it is like, it is not like that कि आज मैंने कुछ भी पढ़ाई नहीं किया. It will be like कि हाँ, I studied during the day something.
Okay. Okay.
It was
So
like,
basically, a consistency, everyday preparation is basically what helped you in achieving the goal,
yes,
right? Now you were referring
yes,
to Schwezer book, right?
yes,
And you were solving our
yes.
question back. Now, when you read to
Yeah.
the Schwezer book, did you found the content very difficult, or the way it was written, or what was your feedback on the Schwezer book?
The Squeezer books are, I think, the perfect book to study from because
Okay.
the material is quite vast. If you go through the material, it is very good. But I think with the limited amount of time that we have,
Hmm.
especially for the people who are working, Squeezers are the best books to refer. Except of that, there were some topics like book 4. I found little. I was like not so sure about Squeezer explanation, so I
Hmm.
had referred some topics of book 4 from the
Okay.
Garb. But I think even if you go through the Squeezer books, they are good enough. You do not need anything else except them.
Right. So you
And
got
for
a,
the question,
sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
for the question bank, I went through the question bank provided by Fintelligent, 3,500 questions, and plus the quiz was really helpful. So the quiz thing at 1 year, 1 month before the exam and all that helped me a lot because
Hmm.
the timing thing and everything that you were monitoring, and this question will require only 1 minute, this question requires 2 minutes, and this question was difficult, so you solved this much in 2 minutes was
Yeah.
helpful. So this all things helped me a lot.
Okay. Okay. And so basically, so just to summarize that, Swager was, according to you, Swager was decent enough for anybody to pick up and start the
Yes.
preparation, right? Now, when you started the preparation, what was your order of book that you picked up? Was there, I'm talking about your self preparation. So you attended the
Yeah.
session for us, but when you picked up on your own, so what was your own self or preparation order?
Okay. So my I started with book 3,
Hmm.
then I went to book 2, then book
Okay.
4, and then book 1. That was my order of preparation. Uh, but before that also, when you started teaching us, so what was my strategy was like, before you teach any chapter to me, I will first read it by myself, so I come
Mhm.
to know what is a clue behind the chapter itself. Then when you're teaching, I have doubts, so when I'm reading, I will develop that I don't know this, I don't know that, so I found it this difficult. So that time I used to question, or in the lecture itself I used to understand. There was
Right.
less amount of questions I used to ask, and then after that I used to go through the chapter 1. So then there is like a thorough reading, you don't need to go through again anything. Then it's like question bank solve, you solve your question banks and then you're done with it. So this was
Right.
basic strategy that I used to follow while I was studying.
Perfect. So basically, you were kind of reading the content for three times, two times
Yeah.
on your own, and the one time when you came to the session. Now, in terms of the question bank solving, okay, 1 month before the exam date, okay, were you able to complete the question bank solving and the first reading of your book? What was your status?
Yeah, so basically, question bank solving was like I had done the complete 3,500 questions, but there was a video on Fintelligent app which I had viewed, and it said that you had given a strategy that marking each question, like if the question is difficult, is the question
Yeah.
easy, and all. So I had used that strategy. Basically, I divided my question bank into 4 parts: easy, difficult, tricky, and in such an order. And
Hmm.
then it was like important questions है जो last moment पे एकदम revision में काम आएंगे करके.
Right.
So I'd made this 4 categories, and then when I used to do the question bank, initially it is like you solve the question, you get an answer, then you go through the question bank, you check your answer and you see where are you wrong, and then I
Right.
used to categorize that particular question. So this helped me. So 1 year before the exam, I actually didn't go through the question bank completely, but I just went through those questions which are
Important topics.
important in
Yes.
conceptual wise. So
Right.
this was
So
basically my
basically,
strategy.
from the start itself, when you were solving, you did a lot of marking and all, so that you,
Yes,
when you revise, you don't have to go to the entire question bank. You are focusing on the difficult question set itself. Right. That's
yes,
correct. That's a wonderful
yes.
strategy. Now, when you were looking at a particular topic, okay, so see, just to this question I'm asking specifically from the student's perspective, that whenever you read an entire book, there'll be some content that definitely you might find certain difficulty, okay, but did you find that, okay, when you went for an exam and there were one or two chapters, for example, you thought this was difficult, did that actually impacted your exam by any chance?
No. So, speaking on the exam day, truly, when I started my paper initially, it was like these questions are like, I don't know anything. I was like, because it is like the journey was like, I got up 5 o'clock in the morning because I stay in South Mumbai to travel to Kandivali. So it was long distance, and I was exhausted by the time the paper started at 8 o'clock. So I was like 3 hours. I did not sleep also last night, yeah, properly. So it is like I'm exhausted. Now I'm not able to analyze the question itself. Then it was like the video 1 day prior you had a session with us where you told that if the initial questions are difficult, do not very go to the questions at the end. What I started is I got scared looking at the first 5 questions. I went to the last question, 100th question. I started solving my paper from backside, from 199 and
Okay.
so, and I realized that that the questions at the end were really easy, and these questions in starting were really difficult and very difficult to analyze itself. So I started with the back questions, and just the thing that I kept in mind is that as I'm doing questions, I'm marking them, so I
Hmm.
don't do a wrong answer marking over there. So this was difficulty in terms of solving the paper itself. And then it was like there were questions which I couldn't identify कि book 3 में से book 4 में से book 2 में से, because they were so complex in terms of analyzing. So I also, one thing I want to add is that you had given one more tip that track the questions कि book 4 में से कौन सा question है book 3 में से. So I made a strategy that every question I read I was writing B4 for book 4 and so on so forth, like book
Okay.
3 book 4. And then I was also keeping a track that which questions I'm able to solve. Like if book 4 का question I'm 100% sure, like duration है, for example I'm just here. So
Hmm.
it is like plug and play, variables डालना है and करना है solve. So
Right.
this is like I'm 70 to 80% sure that my answer is right. So I have to just do a tick, so I don't have to come back to that question and I have to review it.
Hmm.
So I
Okay.
used this strategy. It worked really well for me, and it gave me a confidence that book 4 के इतने questions तो पक्के मैंने solve कर दिए, so I don't need to worry about it so much, and now need to focus on the other books and questions pertaining to it.
Right, right. So, for the benefit of the audience, what Divya is primarily saying is that when she solved the exam paper, she was also doing the marking simultaneously, understanding which question is coming from which book, and also whether she is confident on a particular question or not. She did different marking for the same, and because that helped her in the last half an hour, if I'm not wrong, when she is coming back and analyzing which question to relook at or which question to again assess, so that decision making became very fast. So you were you able to do the entire 100 questions properly? When that means you're confident, okay, I have been able to solve something in that question. Was that the situation for 100 questions?
Yeah, so I remember in the last half an hour, I was done with almost 70 questions approximately, and I had on the head of each, like we had pen and paper exam. So on the paper itself, on the front row, I had written that this page I have left this particular question, and I
Okay.
need to come back and go through those questions only. I will not go through other and all the other questions. So
Hmm.
it makes easier. You don't have to go through that entire paper or sheet. You don't have that much of time. So there was half an hour left. I was so stressed that I am still left with 30 questions. But that trick of writing the questions up on the page helped me in going through the questions. And yeah, I was able to solve 70 questions really nicely. The 30 were a mess, but then I made sure that I don't leave any question. I marked all the questions, and the ones which I felt were
Hmm.
little unsure, I knew them. I read it thoroughly and then started solving it. So out of 30, I guess I did a 7 or a 10 questions nicely, like reading them properly, and rest of all I just marked them like.
Okay. So rest 20 primarily you were not very sure. Okay,
Yeah.
what could be the answer? So
Yes.
were you confused in the two options in those 20, or it was like I'm not even aware about what is that? What was that situation?
Yes. So, in I would say out of the 25 or 7 questions, I wasn't completely aware.
Hmm.
I was like, this is somewhere there in the book, but not able to make out what
Okay.
would be the answer. And I was like, wasting time is not reading this, and wasting time is not making sense. So I will go through the question that I know. And yeah, there are times, as you said, two options will be
Hmm.
confusing. You will have to go through the question thoroughly to
Right.
make sure that you're taking the right option.
So
And
in
attentive reading is very important over there.
Okay. Okay. So in the last 30 question, what I can analyze, 30 question where you face challenge, 7 to 8, you realize, okay, when I read, I am able to get the answer because the question might be
Yes.
lengthy or it might be slightly confusing. 20 rest, there were 5 to 7 questions which you could not even understand. You know that this is a concept in the book, but you're not very sure how to go about or looking at that. The rest, 10, 15 questions, you basically were confused in the two options. That is what I can
Yes.
summarize, right? Okay. Now, when you did that two option ka thing, you basically at the end you try to pick up the best guess that you thought, okay, this will be the answer. This might be the answer,
Yes.
right? Now, you faced a similar kind of situation when you were doing mocks. What was your experience over there?
Uh, Okay, so I think this was like previous question. May I would have answered this, but yeah. Anyways, so this is like 1 month before when I started preparing. I had 4 mocks in my hand. I was like, I have to sitting that 4 hours attentively will be a challenge. You have to completely focus, and uh, for me, I don't know. I was like, I want to practice this up because I'd previously given exams where I couldn't sit for so long and attentively. So what I started doing is from that 8 to 12 every day, I was just sitting as if I'm giving my paper. So for that
Okay.
1 week I practiced that. So that helped me to sit that 4 hours very attentively on the exam day itself.
Okay.
So I used to solve the mock paper. One I used to do is 8 to 12 solve the
Hmm.
mock papers. Then the rest of the day has to analyze the mock paper and see what went wrong.
Okay.
This
Okay.
was my strategy 1 week ago before the exam. I started using this.
Okay.
And yeah, this helped me during the exam day itself.
Okay, this is a very interesting point. See, as a student, you have to understand what can be a problem for you or what is your weakness. If somebody cannot sit for the entire 4 hours stretch because of XYZ reason, so at least you can practice that and then go for the exam. So everybody might face a problem in a different way. You have to understand what is your problem and how to tackle it. So that was a very good example of using the last 1 week and doing the preparation or basically analyzing the mock. So a lot of people actually what they do is they don't get much time to go for the mocks because their preparation is delayed. Okay, and when in the end they primarily give one or two mocks and then it shows up in the result. Now one more question which I would like to highlight, ask you is, were you able to do the Garb sample paper in that time frame?
Yes, I was able to do that. In fact, it was really helpful. The mock and the gap papers are really useful because you get some idea of the difficulty level you're gonna face. So you get
Hmm.
mentally prepared for it. So it helped me when I faced the question paper. You might
Hmm.
not get those questions actually ever faced in your life, but the gap paper and the mock papers make you realize that yeah, this is the level of difficulty you're gonna face. And I also started tracking the marks that I was getting. So, for example, 100 questions I'm solving, each is 1 mark. So I used to
Mhm.
keep a track. So first mock I got 63, second mock I got 70. I'm just giving example. So I started keeping a track of the marks itself, and I
Right.
started making sure that I'm not repeating the same mistake with time management and everything. So I used to keep a time management. You had already done that in the quiz, so I started doing it myself, by keeping like 2 minutes. I would give a question, a single question, 2 minutes, not more than that. If it is consuming, I would stop there and then move on to the next question. So making
Okay.
yourself realize that, because sometimes you get too stubborn and you like, nahi
Hmm.
abhi I have to do this question anyhow. So it gets to the ego sometimes,
And
and you waste your time like.
actually, this is a very tricky part of the exam, because, like you said, when you started the first part of the exam, in when you went for that, so initial questions were very difficult. If normally what student would do is they would enter into the exam, they will start with the first question, they would see a difficult question, their morale would go down. Okay, in fact, they would
Yes,
waste most of the time. So I that is what I've been telling to students, that picking up the right question is a trick to clear the exam, and that only comes when you
yes,
solve a lot of question and you start getting a gut feeling. And one
yes.
more thing which I would like to understand for the benefit of the audience, that when you were solving mock, what was the range of marks that you were getting? If you denote one question, 1 mark, what was the range of marks that you were actually getting?
So my range was from 65 to 85. So it depends on the mock paper itself. All mock
Mm.
papers are not difficult. Even the GAP paper, there are two sample GAP papers I remember. So one is easy, one is difficult. So depending on the level of the mock and the difficulty level, it, my marks were varying from 65 to 85. The range
Okay.
was this.
Okay. But it was not the case that you were scoring 100 or you were scoring 90,
No,
99,
no, no,
right? So that,
no, no.
because what students also expect when they are practicing the question bank, or when they are practicing a quiz, they feel that they should be getting every answer. But that is not how things happen,
That,
right?
yeah,
You'll
yes,
make mistake and then you'll learn. The key to this is,
yes,
when you solve 5 to 6 mock papers, you have to make sure that you should be able to understand which topic is you're confident
yes,
on, and which topic you are not. So when you go to the exam, you
yes,
are in a better position to pick up questions. That is what it is. Now,
yes.
when you uh, went out of the exam, you completed the exam. Okay, one more question related to the exam that I forgot. When in the exam, how many questions you felt were into theory, and how many questions were into proper calculation as per your understanding of that day?
Yeah. So I would basically I can give a rough ratio. Like it
Mhm.
was like for me it was like 60% of theory. I would say 65% of theory, and the
Okay.
rest 35 was practical. Which I think I was expecting a lot of practical questions based on what we actually see in the Squeezer and books and all.
Yes. Yes.
But it turned out to be the other way around. But it is all about your concepts. If they are clear enough, you do not have a challenge in doing either of them, not the practical one, nor the, because it is like they won't ask you simple questions like what is duration. They won't ask you the definition
Right.
and all. They'll ask you like really tricky questions. But if your concept is clear, you are able to bang on to the question.
Okay. And when you said that, like, around 35 questions were calculation, now those questions were
Yes.
directly formula driven. How many questions you
Yes.
think were formula driven, or how many questions were exceptionally difficult?
Yes. So I would say, like what I come across to is book one was majorly formula based.
Hmm.
Uh, book three, I guess, was formula based. So, out of the 35 questions, 35% questions that, yeah, basically 35. So, 35 questions, I think 20 questions were just plug and play. Like you put in the variable numbers and you get the answer, and you
Okay.
can see them in the option. So, it gives you a level of satisfaction. Oh, yes, I've done this like correctly, and
Okay.
it gives you
Okay.
little confidence and boosts up your morale that, yeah, this I've got it. And yeah, it goes in little stress free like.
Okay. Okay. But the rest 15 questions, you had to use something else, or basically there was a lot of tricky
Yes,
part into it. That
they
is
were
what.
not direct questions
Acha,
basically.
okay. Basically, you had to think a lot when, even after getting the answer,
Yes,
or the questions were slightly tricky, basically.
yes,
Okay. But
yes,
you were able to solve that 35 questions properly.
yes, properly, yes.
Okay, okay. Now, when you completed the exam, when you came out, was there any number in your mind? Okay, okay, I think so. I would get 60 right. I would get 70 right. Any number that you had in your mind?
It was like I was like, oh shit, man! I worked really hard for it, but am I up to the mark? This was a really difficult paper actually. The level of difficulty you cannot estimate. You like I was very confident. I was like, oh, I've solved 6 GARB paper. I solved 6 mock papers, like 2 GARB and all, and like I'm going to bang it on. And then when I went to the paper, I was like, oh shit, man, it's too difficult. I was very scared actually.
Okay,
I was like, I was literally scared. I was like, I don't know whether what I'm getting out of it. I was sure on questions I've solved, but I cannot give you a number. Like, I don't
okay,
know. Means
okay,
I
okay.
was
And
stressed at that point of time. So it was,
no,
it was
that's
a
a
weird
normal thing. That's
situation.
a normal thing. I understand that
Yeah.
everybody who comes out of the exam paper, because it's not, this is not a paper where you will be confident. Okay, I've solved everything. I will get 100 marks.
Yes.
I'll get 95
Yes.
marks. So that is what I can totally understand. Now, if when you cleared the exam and you got the news, was there
Yes.
any uh, recognition that you saw in your company, the way people talk to you or your friends, your family member? What was there any change that you saw?
Yeah, it special like firstly, I don't know how to express this, but it was like the most memorable moment of my life. I was literally shivering looking at my results, and it was like what firstly it was like passing the exam,
Hmm.
secondly the quartiles. So I didn't expect that I'll get a one in all the books except of book one I got two second
Hmm.
quartile, and the rest of the books I got first quartile, and it was unexpectable from my side. I was like, after leaving the exam paper, I was like, am I passing or not? I don't know about this. So I said that to you. But yeah, after that, the main thing comes now that I had left my job
Hmm.
due to some reason, and after that there was a struggle because exam was postponed and
Hmm.
I was really demotivated because I had planned something. It was like
Hmm.
I'll prepare 1 month for the exam, give the exam in November, and then again look after job, start searching for job.
Right.
But it did not go that way. The exam got postponed, and
Yes. Yes.
I was literally demoral. I was like demotivated. I was like, I don't know now where my career is heading because this span of time that I'm spending at home will be seen in my CV, and it will give a bad impact. But the moment I cleared this exam, I
Hmm.
did not expect. I got it. I started getting calls from a lot of companies. I updated
Okay.
this thing in my CV and my LinkedIn profile, and a lot of recognition I started getting from my friends on LinkedIn, and especially calls that I started getting, and these were calls pertaining to what I wanted to make my career into. I wanted to make my career into risk management. After that, I started getting call for credit risk, market risk, and
Okay.
currently working into a market risk position, which is
Wow.
with the help of that. So I am really thankful that to you, sir, especially that I cleared this exam
No,
successfully.
definitely, it was all your effort. Don't worry about it. But that definitely, this discussion is going to motivate people to realize that okay, now in the corporate side, you apart from your graduation or apart from an MBA, you need something to upskill yourself because that is how. And
Yes,
also, people perceive this. This is a difficult course. If you're able to clear, then they perceive your ability. Okay, they perceive that you
yes,
know something. That is a very very
yes.
different perception that people have about you. And also, finally,
Yeah, I want
somebody.
to add on one thing
Mhm.
here that in my interviews also, we might think that whatever is studying in the book may not be asked here and there, like in interviews and all. But
Mhm.
whenever I used to sit for interviews, they used to ask me these questions. Do you know what is a swap? Do you know what exactly happens in swap and all? And I was like, this is helping me to clear my interview as well. So it
Mhm.
was like an add-on. Like I was very satisfied after clearing the exam and reading and learning such things.
Great, great, great. One more thing. If somebody comes to you today asking you three things about FRM level one, how should you prepare for FRM level one? What would be that three things that you would tell that person?
I would say first thing is consistent.
Hmm.
Be consistent in your studying. Do not take it for granted. Like it's not an easy thing. Second, I would like plan it. Plan it.
Okay.
You may not achieve the 100% of it, but yeah, 70% would be achievable. And third would be, I would say, give your whole heart towards it. I don't know, like I gave complete of myself to it. I was like, I don't want to leave this at any cost.
Right, right. And one more thing which I generally tell students, that this is your career. You have to be serious. Nobody else will be serious, neither your company, nobody, neither your friends. Basically, you have to take the decision, you have to take that step, you'll have to bring in that extra 1 hour 2 hour to prepare for the exam. And you have to, and if you are planning to go for FRM, either you'll go this year or next year, anytime
Yeah,
you'll have to give that time. So take the earlier you take the decision, the better it is. Because in 2019-20, the before that, the fees for the exam was also very less, right? So now it has increased, the format has changed, so definitely the
yes,
difficulty level will keep on increasing that way. So
yes.
I'll just close the session now. Thank you very much, Divya, for your time and giving the guidance to the students who are going to be looking at this video in the future, how exactly you were able to clear and what steps they can take in making their life easy while going for the exam, right? And definitely we would look forward to have you in more sessions in the future, which wherein you will be able to talk about your experience into the marketers domain, which you've started now, and your experience of looking for a job, because that is also a whole together different process, right? You have to prepare a CV, and so definitely your experiences will be helpful for the student. So I'd like to conclude. Thank you very much again and for giving your time, Divya.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.